Hello, I've recorded this video to give you some tips about how best to think about your proposal and bibliography assignment, and also how to think about your curator paper. So before I start by clicking through some screens, I'd like to explain that the easiest way to think about it is like this. The proposal and bibliography are the first part of your curator paper assignment. So essentially, you're just writing one long paper at the end of the semester, but I'm trying to make it a little easier by breaking it down into these two separate assignments. So the first one's a little bit shorter, and then it finishes with the long paper, which is called the curator paper. So let's talk a little bit about some different things that are available to you and exactly what I'll be looking for. So when you open into the course, obviously you're in announcements, and now it's getting to that part of the semester where you scroll down and you notice that you have the proposal and bibliography coming up. So here is where you are going to actually upload the assignment. And also, side note here, some of these images are going to be different depending on what course you're in. Doesn't matter, this assignment is the same regardless of the courses. So this is where you will upload the proposal and bibliography. If we scroll all the way down here, you can see this is where you'd be uploading your curator paper. If you'll see in both of them too, the description says to refer to the course outline to see exactly what I'll be looking for. So you'll go back up here, click on syllabus course outline, and go ahead and scroll all the way down, and you will find here a description of these written assignments. So I'm going to be talking you through this. I encourage you, if you're the kind of person that does better with reading, this here might be an easier way for you to understand it, and all of this info can be found in this here. So let me talk about it with you for a little bit. So you'll see, as I've explained, there are two written assignments for the course. The first one is your proposal and bibliography. So what you are pretending is that you are a curator. A curator is someone who oversees the collection and exhibition of objects in a museum or a gallery. So you're imagining that you work for a museum or an art gallery, and you are putting together 3 artworks that fall within the time period of the course. If you're in Survey 1, that means before the year 1400, or if you're in Survey 2, that means after the year 1400. It can be any 3 objects, but they have to be real art objects that actually exist. Now you're putting together a proposal to explain which art objects and why those art objects specifically. Now, if you've never visited a museum, it might be hard to imagine how you'd put together an exhibit. I've got down here some links to actual art museums that have examples of exhibits that they've had in the past and currently. So this here is this second link here, which is the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And here we can see what they've got going on. Okay, we've got old photographs, we've got art and identity in the ancient Middle East. Here's a pretty straightforward one, Dutch masterpieces. So you could click on it. This is an exhibit. And you can imagine somebody at some point actually proposed this thing. They're like, I'm a curator. My exhibit is going to be about Dutch painting, and I'm going to curate, so in other words, choose a selection of Dutch paintings for it. Here you've got an overview in the style of the kind of like academic style, and here are some here are some of the actual paintings that are in the exhibit. Okay? So you are pretending that you are putting together something like this. Now it doesn't need to be painting, it could really be anything at all. And if you scroll through, you see, look, here we've got instruments of rock and roll. As long as it's visual art and it falls within sort of the genre of what we've been looking at, like here we've got drawings, here we've got sculptures from Polynesia, anything like that can be fine. So I encourage you to try and choose a topic that's interesting to you and that has some kind of theme. So is it divine painting? Is it different artworks about celebrating the year of the pig? what is the theme of your exhibit? That's what I want to see in your proposal. Because you're going to have to be writing about actual artworks, you'll also need to write a bibliography. So once you've chosen your artworks, you're going to need to choose sources that will help you research them. P.S. This here is a description, like a written description of everything I'm saying. So you're going to write that one paragraph proposal that summarizes the thesis of your exhibit and explains which artworks you're going to choose. And here's an example of what the format of your proposal will look like. And then here is your bibliography down below. So you need to have a bibliography that contains 3 or more sources. The sources need to be in MLA format. And you need to find 3 sources that are in addition to the textbook. So if you plan to be using the textbook, you can go ahead and cite it. But I want you to find 3 other scholarly academic sources in addition to the textbook. The actual museum that you use, like let's say you're using the Met, could be one of the sources that you use. But if you're using the Met, I want you to cite something. Sorry about that. Cite something in addition to the museum. Because if you're just citing one source, like just different web pages from the Met Museum, that's actually just one source. So try and pull in some other sources, maybe even books. Speaking of searching museum databases, I've got down here 2 databases. This is for the Louvre, which is a French museum, and this one here is the database of the Met, which is a New York-based museum. When you go to those databases, it'll take you to a site that looks like this. Search the collection. So let's say the topic, you know for sure that you want to do maybe artwork from Canada. And you know that you want it to be a certain date. Let's see here. We've got a couple of artworks from 1800 to 1900. And then you could even search for the type of material, like maybe you're interested in artworks, Canadian artworks from 18 to 1900 that are ceremonial masks. And then you can search. And here you go. You've got 3 artworks that are ceremonial masks from the 1800s to the 1900s. So then you would need to do some research about them, and depending on the object that you choose, when you click on it, it'll give you references. It'll give you some timeline information, and it'll tell you what other objects in the collection might be associated with it in some way. Now this is a really good place to start, and you can choose their references and go ahead and access them and use them as research for your work. And sometimes you'll find in these pages there's also like a little bit of info, a little bit more info about the object. You can cite that too. So using the actual museum database is a great resource. Now, in this example here that I just pulled up, these are some pretty obscure objects. Your paper can be about something that's covered in the class. You could even just choose objects that are both in your textbook and have been covered, like let's say in Khan Academy, which is another great resource. It doesn't need to be obscure, although it can be. And then a final word about this has to be an MLA format. MLA format looks like this, and it's just a way of organizing the references that you cite. So if you click on this link down here, it'll take you to a web page that explains how to format according to MLA, and it even has a generator. So if you are using a website, you can plug it in here and it will help you get started putting it in the correct citation. So that is the proposal and bibliography assignment. The curator paper is a longer assignment. So I want you to submit the proposal and bibliography first in this kind of a format to me so that I can see that you're on the right track, that your exhibit makes sense, that your resources are good, and that there's some sort of thesis to your exhibit. Pending your approval of your proposal, you'll be writing your curator paper, which again, depending on the section you're in, is due at a different date than in this video. So I encourage you to check in your own class syllabus. Your curator paper is going to be a minimum of 1,000 words, 1,000 words. And for your curator paper, you're going to pretend that your proposal in bibliography has been accepted by the museum, so now you're writing a full-length paper. I recommend, for the format of your paper, for the sake of simplicity, you could format it like this. So you'd begin with your title. Your introductory paragraph could even be the exact same as the proposal. Your first paragraph would be about your first artwork, second about the second artwork, third about the third artwork, and in conclusion, you'll explain what your audience will have learned from visiting the exhibit and why it's important. And then at the very end, you'll have your bibliography, which can be amended if you needed to use more sources. Here is an explanation of what I'll be grading for. I want you to keep in mind that your curator paper is worth 25% of your grade and the proposal and bibliography are worth 5% of your grade, which means that these are pretty important assignments. If you don't turn them in, your grade's not going to be in good shape. If writing is something you struggle with, please send me a draft of your assignments at any time. I'd love to look over them with you. And as long as you submit it to me at least 3 days before it's due, I'll be able to take a look at it and suggest some edits and email it to you. So in other words, I'm here to help, and I'm looking forward to reading your paper.